elf, little fairy. I don't know. Sometimes I call myself an elf. Sometimes I'm a fairy elf, a fae. A fae elf, a fae elf. Maybe that's a new word. I can a new term, a new species, new space fae elf. Is what I am. Floating head in space. Anyway, so I watched season 2 of The Rings of Power, the Amazon Prime series, because Bezos paid big bucks to get the rights to, I guess, portions of the Lord of the Rings mythos. He doesn't have the right to talk about the actual Lord of the Rings books, so he just bought the rights to some chapters in some Silmarillion, I think, book. They put all this money in it, by Amazon, and you can see it on screen. It's pretty well produced, high production value. I watched the first season, when it came out, and I was underwhelmed by it, like most people. Not for all the stupid reasons, but for the reasons that it just felt like it was meandering, and definitely in the middle of the season, it just kind of lost its focus, and just like all the Numenorian stuff, I just got so bored of that. Like, who cares about the Numenorians? And then it wrapped up kind of interesting, and the whole Sauron mystery box thing was it was prolonged and unnecessary. It seemed like, yeah, we know this Halbrand guy is a Sauron. By the way, we're spoiling the Rings of Power season 1 and up to episode 4, because I watched the first half of the Rings of Power season 2. I have to say, general thoughts, it does seem to be like an improvement from the first season, but again, I think it's similar in the sense that it's starting off strong, but I'm starting to feel like it's gonna just repeat its mistakes from the first season. Like the middle episodes are just gonna be a little bit more lackluster. But damn, what an opening! Taking us to the flashback to see freaking Sauron before he had his facelift as Halbrand, trying to persuade the orcs to be on his side, or really commanding them to do it, or else they'll die. But it was great to see him get stabbed by the orcs and stuff. It was fun. Sauron is kind of an asshole, isn't he? I really like the actor for the first season of Adar. It's a little bit going to be hard to live up to that, but we'll see where it goes. But he's doing a good job. But this freaking scene here, and then it explodes. That was a pretty cool effect. That it affects the whole area. And I think most of the orcs die, right? And just Adar lives, because Adar, I guess, is like a half elf or something. Look at that. That's pretty cool. This is the stuff I want to see from these high budget fantasy shows. It's giving me some From Software, Dark Souls vibes. These monsters here. Of course, those games are inspired by the Tolkien and the J.R.R. Martins and such. That's wild. I like that how they went for it. They decided to have a cold open. That's pretty hefty. Is it 20 minutes of a cold open of just them of Sauron coming back to life in a way as a goo monster, and then crawling out. I would watch a whole episode of just Sauron as a goo monster. It would be a cool silent film situation. Maybe I'm a weirdo. Maybe that's it's too avant-garde. But it seems like they're focusing a lot on Sauron this season. It would seem so. But that was an incredible opening. This is probably the best opening of any episode of the season of the series, either season 1 or season 2. Of course, the thing about this season and this episode in particular is that's really giving the Halbrand character / Sauron a lot more depth, and it makes it more interesting. Now that the mystery box is open and we know that he's of course Sauron, it's fascinating to see him try to manipulate people and get his way, and his and then he shows his evil side here by just grabbing that amulet there, that necklace, and letting that nice man die there. What an ass, right? Of course, that's Sauron. He's the evilest of evil. But it also kind of complicates his character a little bit too, because there's a sense of wait, is he maybe gonna try to be good, redeem himself? Maybe he's gonna, but at the end of the day, it seems no, he's just pure evil, actually. For my taste, that's why I gravitate more towards the House of the Dragon situations, the Game of Thrones things, because it feels like the characters are a little bit more realistic and not symbolic of different archetypes. But then again, it's kind of nice to see this opposite perspective. You see someone like Galadriel and someone who's like very focused, uncorruptible in a way. But the thing is that she's actually becomes corrupted by the ring, right? So that makes it kind of fascinating. So maybe I'm not giving Tolkien enough credit. I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe it's in different species, the dwarves and the humans, they all have they're all very well defined as a particular type. And it's only when we get to know these characters that we see like, oh, maybe they have a little bit more of a nuance there within the archetypes, but they're still within that mold. And I think that like maybe the show gravitates a little bit more towards the mold and doesn't really reach outside of it as much as it maybe could, and that would make the characters a little bit more interesting. But at the same time, I think this season is complicating the characters a little more than the first season. I think this whole sequence here, I think, is a great way to start off the elf story here. It really puts you in the middle of the action here, like almost like after the season ended, right? Elrond is taking the rings to protect them from Galadriel. This whole episode is pretty cool, like because I think it focuses a lot on this like immediateness of the potential of these rings being too powerful to even wield, right? And like the battle between these three elves, the king elf, Galadriel, and Elrond, who have all these different perspectives, right? And the stakes feel very high, because the elves depend on perhaps those rings to survive, right? Because that goo is messing up their big tree that they need. And Elrond, of course, he fears the corruption of those rings by Sauron, and he actually has to jump off this cliff in order to save the rings, keep them away from them. And real good stuff here. Ben Daniels is fucking amazing. We saw him earlier in the Interview with the Vampire this year, and he was a great vampire there. That was a great role for him, and now he's doing the opposite. He's being more like a Jesus. He just has that charisma. You can't deny the charisma of Ben Daniels. But he's playing like the oldest elves in these lands. So I guess they're gonna go out and they're mad. He's mad because Galadriel's didn't tell him about Sauron earlier, kept that a secret. She was a bit like I said, I guess she was scared that everyone would think she's like nuts or something for thinking that Sauron's back. But she was right. She was right all along, But now that she was like easily persuaded and was tricked by Sauron, no one really trusts her anymore, and she herself has those insecurities about that, which makes her character a little bit more interesting now, I think, than the first season. So yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so they released all these episodes at once, like 3 episodes at once. Like, damn, it's a lot, It's like it seemed like they were pretty confident. Like, oh, look at that, these episodes are gonna indicate how awesome the season is. And for the most part, they were probably the best episodes so far, right? The first 2, I think, at least, are the better episodes of this so far. And 3 was like okay, and then 4 was like whatever. And is this the other bad wizard in Lord of the Rings? Solomon, and maybe, or people were saying like he's a blue wizard, one of the blue wizards, because there's apparently these 2 blue wizards. Maybe the stranger's another blue wizard, but I don't know. I think it's pretty clear that Gandalf was the other wizard, and this guy's probably the bad wizard, Solomon, from the freaking Lord of the Rings. Did you know we're watching Lord of the Rings? That's the show we're watching right now. It's cool that they brought back this character who I thought was dead. We could, basically she turns into moss, and I guess the moss were gathered in these little vessel, and then she was released here back. She doesn't get too much this season anyway. She does get some lines here. That's pretty cool. I like to see her finally talking here. It's interesting. But then she kind of just stays in the background for the rest of the episode so far, right? So I don't know, maybe we should get a bigger scene later, hopefully, and we'll see. I mean, it seems like they're building up for her to come back with a bigger scene. I'm sure she's gonna have a rematch with the stranger, Gandalf, or whoever. Yeah, so this whole Harfoot situation, it's just kind of not that interesting. It's kind of like, okay, they're just taking the long way to Hobbit Town. Eventually, probably in season 10 or whatever, they're gonna finally establish the Shire, and they're gonna call themselves the Hobbits or something. I think that's what the whole thing is here. And they're kind of just like tagging along as Gandalf here becomes Gandalf. It's kind of like a little bit meandering again. Like, it's like, is it really, do we really need so much time on these characters? See, the thing about this show is that really it feels like they wanted to make this as epic as the Lord of the Rings movies. So they're introducing all these different characters from all these different factions, all these different, races, like the Hobbits, which are the Harfoots, and now there's another version of them here. We're gonna look into here eventually in the next episode. And then there's the wizards, and there's the elves, and there's the humans, and the orcs, and the Numenorians, and it's like all these different stuff, like, and the dwarves, and like, okay, well, maybe we should just focus on a few different people, and not so much make it, because a lot of the stories aren't as great. Like, the dwarves are good. I like the dwarves, although I feel like they are better when they're more connected to Elrond's stories and the elf stories. Definitely the elves are definitely the most interesting of the characters here in this show, and that's because, like, it's all about the rings of power, obviously, and like they're the ones that have the rings of power. So once the dwarves get the rings of power, I think they're gonna, and the humans, maybe, because they're gonna have their own rings too, because we all seen the prologue to Lord of the Rings, right? Sauron makes, like, there's 3 rings for the elves, and there's like 5 rings for the dwarves, 9 rings, I don't know, and then there's like 9 rings for the humans. Like, once all those rings are distributed, and everyone has to, like, come to terms and start to deal with, like, the power of the rings and the conflict, the drama, the height of the drama in this show is like, are they gonna succumb to the corruption of the power of the rings? Are they gonna do evil with the rings? Are they gonna find some good to do with the rings? Are they gonna reject the rings? Are they going to be more like Frodo, or are they going to be more like Gollum? It's like that tension there. That's what really is the heart of the series that we've all been waiting for. And it's starting to pick up, with the elves. Here's that scene where, like, this guy's like all about the death of the author, right? It's like, so what if the evil Sauron was behind the making of these rings? Let's not judge the rings based on its creator. Let's judge the rings by themselves. It's basically the idea of, like, don't judge the work of art because of the artist. And to some extent, that kind of makes sense sometimes. But within the context, we don't live in a vacuum. Within the context of the world, you got to be conscious of that author. Who made that piece of art, whether it's a ring or whether it's a story, a movie, a show, a book. Like, who is benefiting because of their evilness, in a way. Like, whether it's like they're TERFs or sexual abusers. I'm sure a lot of people are going to use this scene and completely clip it out of context and be like, oh, like, see, let's maybe we should give Woody Allen a chance. But you got to think of the whole forest, not just the trees. Like, look, like, in the end of the day, these freaking rings are part of Sauron's plan, and so Sauron's gonna come into power. So maybe that's not what we should get out of this. Maybe we should think of more of a Elrond's perspective here. I don't know, just saying here, this wise old wizard, he shaved his beard. It's like, maybe that beard was giving him more wisdom. Maybe he should have kept that beard. Anyways, too much of prolonged adventuring here. That isn't much adventuring. It's just like walking through deserts. Like, who wants to see that? He uses his wind again, power. And now the Harfoots are long gone, but they survive. But now they're separated. In the next episode, we see they're separated. And I guess the journey now is to, like, now they have to reunite. Now it's like another more filler episodes of reuniting, the Harfoots with Gandalf. Like, okay, whatever. Sauron here is waiting to get invited in like a vampire. This is a pretty awesome scene. I like this scene here, where Sauron convinces Celebrimbor that he has to make these rings. He's a bearer of gifts. He comes out and he's like, you know what? You're gonna respect me. I'm not just a mere mortal. I'm a freaking god, pretty much, or Valar or something. I think Valars are like the a little bit lesser than God. So get this. Tolkien was like a devout Catholic, and so he kind of based his the mythology here on Christianity a little bit, right? The idea that like there's this one God, a monotheistic idea of like there's this one God. He has like these other lesser gods that are kind of like, you know, they have all these powers and stuff. And I think Sauron is not one of those, but he's maybe like a fallen angel type of character. Like he's definitely representative of like the Antichrist, right? Like maybe he's pretending to be the bearer of gifts, right? He calls himself Anatar, right? Look at that. That's some beautiful imagery here. That's some divine imagery you would see in a, you know, painted on a church ceiling or something. Beautiful stuff. That's the thing about this show. Like even like some of these stories, like this is actually a nice little plot here, but some of the plot lines aren't as interesting or fun or engaging. It's at the very least pretty to look at, nice to look at. There's some cool stuff going on here. So now Elrond is going to lead the group here because the writers are like, listen to the fan base. They're like all the misogynist fan base that was like, oh no, Galadriel's too powerful. She's, you know, blah blah blah. And then they're like, fine, we'll give a man the power and be in charge of her army. But actually kind of makes sense for the story that like, you know, it makes her character more interesting, that like now she's kind of fallen from grace, you know. Galadriel like had the idea right in the beginning, right, that Sauron was still out there, you know, and now all these, you know, and then, you know, she's treated like a lunatic, you know, like a Rosemary's Baby situation. And then now she was right, and now that, you know, they don't trust her anymore and stuff. And like it's in the way that she like kind of gets like persuaded and fooled by the devil, you know. I guess that's, you can kind of read that a little bit as maybe a little bit sexist writing too, like, oh okay, so it's like she's the Eve character that gets seduced by the devil, like the snake in the garden. Oh, like, you know, so maybe they did cater to the misogynist out there. I don't know, we'll see where the story goes to. So we get to see more of the humans this episode. This is episode 3, and it's starting to dip a little bit in quality. I feel like it's becoming a little bit more filler, as these shows tend to do in the middle episodes, right? The dad and the Numenorians. Oh, who cares about Numenorians? This is like the weakest part of the show, the Numenorians. Like, I don't care about them. And like, it just seems like a generic fantasy trope show within a show here. And it's like, you know, the politics of who's gonna rule and everything. It's like, okay, whatever. And I kind of forgot a lot of these characters existed too. It's like, oh yeah, these characters are in the story. It's like, this is cool to see that like Doran here is actually pretty skeptical of Sauron. You know, like you know, people don't treat the dwarves right, but you know, this Doran guy, he knows that when he sees it, he knows this guy's in good. Oh yeah, by the way, they killed off Brownin in between seasons here because the actress wasn't interested in joining the second season here, because I don't know the politics of it. Apparently she was an advocate for women's rights and around and stuff, and maybe they didn't want to get too political about that in the show or something, and so she didn't want to be part of the show anymore. I don't know, someone's got to read about it, but eventually and do a report on it or something, because we got to know the details there. But until we do, she's gone, you know. And she apparently the poison in that arrow she got in last season is still, it was seeped into her blood or whatever, and into her heart and brain, and killed her. And the elf guy here, the archer here, didn't realize that. It's like, oops, I forgot, humans are weaker than elves. Oops, she's dead. And so it's a little bit sloppy, you know. Human Southlands, the elf guy, he feels like, why is he the ranger elf here? He's just stuck here with the humans now. Like, I guess he's befriended them, and he's made a promise probably to like protect the kid, right? Because he was in love with his mother. That romance went nowhere. Oops. And some more Numenorian stuff. No one really cares about that, and it's like, whatever, you know. And we'll see where that goes. I don't care. You know, eventually they're gonna all drown in the water. Eventually, it's like Atlantis, right? It's an Atlantis tale, you know. And here they go. We're gonna make those rings for the dwarves now. And you see here that this time, freaking Sauron actually touches the mithril. Now that he touched it, that gives it, you know, he's transferring his evil power into that, and he's gonna drop that into the vat of molten golden ring lava. And Durin's like, something's up here. Durin, no, something's up. Sauron is gonna rule them all. In case you didn't know that, that's what's gonna happen. Cool little maps thing here is they're like speeding up the traveling. It doesn't take as long to get to places nowadays in this season 2. I feel like in season 1 it took them a little longer to get to places. I think especially the Numenorians, to get from Numenor to Middle Earth for that whole battle, it took them forever, right? And then now it's just like, oh, we'll just like cut to a map on the screen and then we'll just fast travel real quick. Cool little sequence, I guess. We are introduced to elves with different shades of skin color here as the high elves, you know, because it used to be where like the only like alpha color was the guy, you know, we saw earlier, the ranger, and you know, he was like a soldier, you know. It's like, and like it felt a little uncomfortable, and like that, like, you know, all the elves in the high cities were white, and like the, you know, when they were on that ship towards the undying lands to go into heaven, supposedly, whatever, it was very like Aryan coded, and you know, it felt a little bit weird, you know. It's like, hey, like maybe you could introduce more, you know, diverse kind of elves in Linden too, because you know that was the idea, is that these elves are immortal, you know, they're like the superior beings of this land, you know, like they're a rank above the humans, whatever. And like to paint them all as like these white elves versus like, okay, yeah, we'll give you a black elf, but he's a soldier in, you know, in the Southlands. Like, just felt a little bit uncomfortable, you know. But now I think they listen to some criticism, maybe, I don't know, and now they introduced a little bit more melanin. The black guys up dying first, you know. You can't win them all, I guess, because they're going to go into battle here with some zombified skeletons here. But Elrond is all pissed off that Galadriel is freaking making use of that ring to tell her what to do next. It's like, no, we're not going to do that trinket. Oh, by the way, Tom Bombadil. Apparently, Tom Bombadil is a favorite among the the Lord of the Rings fan base. Oh yeah, first we gotta talk about these hobbits here that aren't hobbits. We don't have to talk about them, actually. I don't really want to talk about them. So Tom Bombadil, so he's like a mysterious character in Lord of the Rings. He controls nature within his realm or something. He's attuned to nature or something, and he's a happy-go-lucky fella. He's not a wizard, he's not a Valar, he's just the oldest being to exist, I guess. He's been there before the stars came into being. The ring doesn't affect him, because in the books, like, he put on the ring that to rule them all, you know. He put the ring that Frodo had on, and he didn't disappear, you know, because when Frodo puts the ring on, he disappears, you know. You know the story, right? Tom Bombadil, and he sings songs and stuff, so he's a mystery. He's like, what's the mystery here? Gandalf here, I mean, the strangers, like, maybe my destiny is to meet you, not to go to those stars on that map I've been carrying around this whole time. It's to go meet you, and you'll teach me the ways of wizardry. But Tom Bombadil is like, I don't know, maybe. And then he's fine and all, but he just doesn't seem that interesting, really. I don't know, people like him, but you know, maybe he's a little bit more jolly in the books, apparently. So, and apparently he has like a wife too. Where's his wife? You know, maybe he doesn't meet them yet, but that'd be cool to see, like, the couple him interacting with you know, a nice hermit couple and who like to garden and stuff. That'd be kind of cool to see. But no, we only get Bombadil because I guess they couldn't pay another actor, probably because they spent too much money on all this pretty lighting and stuff, and Tom Bombadil. So yeah, there's actually in the end credits a nice song with the Tom Bombadil song with the music here. By the way, the music is like top notch. Bear McCreary, I think his name, something like that. The thing about the show is that the other thing is that like even like if you're not that into it, if like it's not hit or miss, like you can't say no to the music. It just feels good, and the vibe of the music and just being in a nice bright little area like scenery, not right now but later on. It's just nice. This high fantasy setting with the amazing music. It's just nice to be in, nice to every week. Yeah, I'll put it on. I'll put an episode on. Why not? Yeah, it's fun. It's a nice relaxing vibe. It's not like, it's not too like complicated to follow the story or anything, But then here, it's like spooky time. We are getting to spooky season, so they're going into the woods here, and they're gonna face with these zombified, necromanced, freaking skeletons. Decent action here, decent cool stuff. Apparently they have to use the weapons that they were buried with to kill them. That's pretty cool. This is a bit of an odd situation here, where they figure out that she was part of the Mordor clan, I guess part of the wild men who were like all about Mordor or something with the tattoos, and so they think she's gonna betray them. But she doesn't really defend herself. Like, what's up with that? I feel like they cut out some scenes here. Like, it seemed to me that she'd like renounced them. She wasn't really going to trick them or anything. Like, I don't know. She feels like they needed more scenes of her defending herself and explaining her what her deal was. And but she leads them to Dio, and the Ents and stuff are gonna show up. Pretty cool. I like to see talking trees. That's fun. The whole thing about saving the environment, don't cut down trees when it's unnecessary. That's pretty common thing in these stories. It's pretty cool. But then so the first they get sucked up in this quicksand. Another thing you see a lot of quicksand, quick mud. Pretty cool. But then we get like a cool creature here that comes out of there. Also, you think that maybe she's going to betray them by just like not helping them out and like run away, but she comes back with a stick. But then what comes out of there is a freaking snake worm, an unnamed thing. We've never seen these before anywhere, and anywhere, not even in the books, I think. And it's a nice little joke because they're gonna have dinner now because he stabs the freaking thing, and they're gonna eat the heart of that worm thing. Look at that. So it's some wild stuff there. I guess Elrond doesn't want her to follow the ring's advice and stuff, and she sees visions. We do get like a little bit of a spoiler here of she sees something in the future there. Looks like Sauron is gonna attack a blonde. I mean, it looks like her, right? She's on the ground there, and like Elrond is freaking captured by the orcs. So that's a teaser. That's a bit of a spoiler or something, huh? Is that an elf village, or is that the Southlands? I feel like that's like an elf village, right? They're like in one of the elf villages, and the orcs are taking over, and they're tumbling down an elf statue. And so Elrond doesn't want to hear any of that, I'm sure. He's like, no, that's some bad juju, bad magic. We don't want to listen to that. And talking trees are cool. I guess like he chopped down a tree last season or something, and he's regretful, and he apologizes for that, and the trees are like, fine, you're okay, you're good people, fine, whatever, and they let them go, and Theo is let go, and now she's reunited with her boyfriend or something, or like her betrothed, right? And you thought there's gonna be some romance here, and probably there still is. Looks like a love triangle's going on here. The archer dude, he's got some more promises to keep. He has to go do some other stuff, but so does Theo. He has to stay behind, so they can't go venture out. So now they're splitting up. What's he gonna do? I don't know. He's gonna meet up with Galadriel and fight alongside her. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? I don't know. Like, he's probably gonna go to Adar. The whole thing is him reuniting with Adar because he and Adar had a thing last season. So now they gotta like, close the loop there. So they find the orcs encroaching on elven lands, And so this guy gets arrowed, but then like Galadriel heals him with some magic, and it appears it's the magic of the rings, right? They don't really like go into like exactly what powers the rings have, and maybe they don't even know yet. So it'd be kind of cool to get more details on like exactly what she can do with the ring. But apparently she can heal arrow wounds, because this guy saved. She couldn't save the other guy who got sucked into that hole, but she can save this guy. I wonder why. Anyways, she's like, well, take the ring, because I'll show you that I don't need the ring, and like, but really it's like you got to protect the ring, right? Because part of it's like she wants to protect them, but also, as Elrond points out later, like, oh, she just wanted to save the ring. There's a little bit of this and that. Like she wanted to like distract the orcs with their cool warrior abilities. So the elves take the ring away and keep it safe, from the orcs, because it is better that the elves have it than the orcs, right? Because the orcs are bad. They're big bad guys. And by the way, like the freaking cool scene here with Galadriel doing some cool archery stuff, pretty cool. And she was described like as like Amazonian, in a way, like, so I don't know why people complain about her having all these cool skills. Like that's how Tolkien wrote her. She has some cool skills. I can see how like alt-right, far-right people like Lord of the Rings, because it's the thing about Lord of the Rings is that like, in a way, like it's very like archetypical, right? All these characters are archetypical, very well defined, and often not really coming out of their molds, as I said earlier. But so you can read them in different ways, and so like the Lord of the Rings was a big thing with the hippie community in the 60s and stuff, and 70s, left-leaning people, I imagine, environmentalist, all that stuff. But then like a lot of alt-righters even nowadays like it too, because they can identify with it, the idea of like these orcs invading the elfish land. So I feel like this whole scene, a lot of people, with maybe conservative, bigoted views can like see this as like, oh, like immigrants invading their country or something, and I feel like this plays into that idea a lot. How it's like shown here, and of course you don't have to take it that way, but I can see how a lot of alt-writers could take it that way and be on Galadriel's side. Oh, look, this like blonde lady's defending her homeland from these dark orcs, who are like bad people. You can see this as a bit glamorizing that whole idea, but I don't want to look at it that way. Let's not look at it that way. It's very like, a lot of it is very black and white. The morality of this story, like, it can be easily co-opted by bad people, I think. And so she takes care of them, but then the twist here at the cliffhanger here is that Adar shows up right here, puts out that fire. Nice to meet you, Galadriel, once again, because in the first season she imprisoned Adar, right? She had him tied up or shackled up and wanted some answers. And now it's the other way around, it seems. Now, did she expect to be caught or something? Like, I guess she was sacrificing herself to show to Elrond that she's virtuous or whatever. It feels a little bit contrived that, okay, now she's going to be captured. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I didn't see the next Dawn. I don't really care about the next Dawn. I'll wait until next week to see. And maybe it's going to be where the ranger elf in the Southlands is going to rescue Galadriel. Could be, because he's coming to meet up with Adar, right? That's his whole story arc of him reuniting with Adar and getting his revenge or whatever. That's the first half. Can you believe the first half of The Rings of Power season 2? There's 4 episodes left, I'm pretty sure. This show is kind of replicating the first season. Like, if you like the first season, you're probably like this season. I think it started off a little better. It feels like there's more weight to the narrative now with the Rings of Power. At least the elf one's already created, and then and the whole conflict of Galadriel versus Elrond struggling about what to do with the rings and stuff, and like that's all interesting. Of course, like Numenorians, the humans, it's all like the lesser a part of the show that is not as interesting as always. It feels like it's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different characters that, it feels like somewhat just filler in a way. Like, oh, like we just need to have all these cool different characters and races to make this seem like an epic series, where really it would have benefited to like slim it down a little bit and focus on fewer characters, I think. And so that's a detriment to the series as a whole, I think. But it's nice to look at. It's a beautiful show, and it's kind of like a nice, relaxing, in a way, show to watch, every week, to just calm down and escape into fantasy, and a simple fantasy that isn't too complicated, isn't as cynical as a House of Dragons, isn't as grounded, it's nice, so it's not bad, if you're into that thing, I'm into that genre. And I think, because Tolkien is such a big name, it's such a big thing over the years, it's been around for so long, and it's inspired so much stuff that like it's just naturally becoming nostalgic for a lot of people, just to envision the aesthetics of it. And I've succumbed to it. I like fantasy stuff, and if you like fantasy stuff, you end up liking Tolkien anyways, at least the aesthetics of it. There's some highs, there's some good stuff, and I think overall this season may be a notch better than the first. We'll see. We're only halfway through. But I wouldn't be surprised if it goes downhill too as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it just becomes a little bit more, gets boring as it goes along, and it loses its focus, and maybe the final episode will come together as it tends to do with this show, it seems, and then we'll have a fun finale that will tease the next season, and then we'll have to wait another couple years, as per usual. But those are my thoughts for the Rings of Power, episode 1 through 4 of season 2. But yeah, anyways, that's that. I'll see y'all next time under the moonlight. Bye bye.